I'm back. Sunday. Usually it's the day off, but for some reason my last lecture got postmarked on private and I can't figure out how to unlock it. So I'm going to redo it. I'll make it brief so you can watch it at your own leisurely pace. I want to talk about Macbeth. We're doing Shakespeare this last week. We talked about Hamlet. Now we're going to talk about Macbeth. Hopefully you guys are seeing that stuff on Films on Demand. Go to Films on Demand. There's a series on Shakespeare. It's called Shakespeare Uncovered. 6 parts. If you go into Shasta College Library, streaming videos, you're going to need your library card number, I believe, to get into it. Hopefully you've used it before because I've assigned some stuff in there before already. It's not Canopy. It's videos on demand, films on demand. Shakespeare Uncovered, 6 parts. Each part covers one famous play, and there's a pretty famous, well-known actor who's going to play the part. Hamlet is going to be played. Oh, I can't think of his name. He's a British actor. I can't think of it right offhand. David Tennant. He's maybe you don't know from Doctor Who if you watch that. And so he's exploring the character of Hamlet because he's going to play it. And so how he does his research. And then you learn something about the play by watching this 50-minute, really fascinating, I find it fascinating, hopefully you do too, documentary on an actor who's going to portray one of the most famous parts, arguably the most famous part in theater history, Hamlet, to be or not to be. But today I want to talk about Macbeth. And in the series, the 6-part series on Films on Demand, go in there, click on Shakespeare Uncovered. You'll see 6 parts. You'll see Hamlet. Hamlet is going to be portrayed by Ethan Hawke, the American actor. And you follow his research and how he's doing things or going to do things. And they played these parts a couple years ago on different stages. Anyway, so that's what I want you to go look at online. I tried to post the link, and for some reason it wasn't working. So you got to kind of do it the old school way. Type it in. Shakespeare Uncovered. Films on Demand, Shasta College Library. You'll see it. Check it out and learn something awesome about Macbeth, which is why I want to talk about it for a few minutes today. It is Sunday. I tried to post this thing on Friday, but for some reason it wasn't working, so I'm redoing it. I'll be better this time. I mean it. And early on in the play, Macbeth, the wicked sisters, or as they're also known as the witches, one of them says, "By the prick of my thumb, something wicked with this way comes." That's a prediction. Simply meaning, by the pain in her thumbs, who knows what that is? You figure it out. When she has pains in her thumb, that usually means a bad omen. Something wicked this way comes. And of course, a lot of wickedness happens in the stage play Macbeth. The play is it's a blood play because there's a lot of blood in it. Lady Macbeth is covered in blood. She can't wash the blood off her hands because she's guilty of murder, most foul. But it's one of Shakespeare's most brutal plays, and a lot of people think it's difficult to stage. Okay, do you want something that's easily staged? More difficult, the more richer the experience. And some people say, is this play just about evil? Portrait of evil? Well, there's a human being in this. Macbeth is human. He's a man. Now, it's called a tragedy of Macbeth. And I told you before in a previous lecture, the meaning of tragedy, simplified version, is tragedy is when something bad happens to a good person. If the person is bad already, it's not tragic that something bad happens to them. But if somebody's good and decent and something bad happens to them, then it's a tragedy. And so Shakespeare wrote a lot of tragedy plays. You could say Romeo and Juliet's tragedy. They're good people. Bad stuff's going to befall them, though. Hamlet's a tragedy. He's a good person until bad stuff starts to happen. Macbeth is a warrior, respected by as many as a general out in the field doing his job. But once he gets the prediction from these wicked sisters or the witches that he's supposed to be king, that's all he thinks about. He tells his wife, Lady Macbeth, and she pushes him towards murder most foul. He kills the standing king. He murders his best friend's family. All of a sudden, they have lots of blood in their hands. How far will he go? What is Macbeth really about? Ambition? A perversion of ambition? Yes. It's about a lot of things, told in a very dramatic way. And they've had many different productions of it, not just stage. They've had many movies. Orson Welles did a Macbeth. Roman Polanski did a great Macbeth in the 70s with John Finch, the actor. It's a really good one. If you get to see it, I don't think you'd be bored by it. Movies tend to take they tend to simplify Shakespeare because they got to tell the story in 2 hours or less. And these Shakespeare plays are a lot longer than that. 3-4 hours is normal for Shakespeare if you do all the text. And so it's hard to translate that into movies as you cut a lot of it out. But it's been done. They're still making Macbeth. They did one last 2 years ago, a pretty decent one. They've done satires on Macbeth. But it's become kind of a cliche. If you have a person who is ambitious and wants things, that's compared to Macbeth. And if that person has an ambitious wife who was willing to push their spouse into murder, it's always compared to Lady Macbeth. Now, what happens to Lady Macbeth? Her greed, her ambition turns her into a madwoman. She is the responsibility. She doesn't put the knife in anybody, but he does at her coaching. And she goes insane, and she cannot wash the blood, the metaphorical blood, not real blood, off her hands. There's no blood there, but she's scrubbing her hands raw, trying to get the blood out that only she can feel and see. No matter how much he tells her it's not there, she doesn't believe it. And she ends up stopping her torment by committing suicide. Now, Macbeth is losing everything. Not only has he killed a bunch of people to become king, they were his friends, some of them. Now his wife is dead. He's painted himself into a corner, and the wicked sisters or the witches have predicted the whole thing. But you have to understand the prediction, and it's not easy to understand. I mean, there's a great line in it where the next king will not be of woman born. Well, how's that possible? He says. That can't be. So there's not going to be a next king. I am the last king, because how can it be if not a woman born? So it's not human. But the trick is, these wicked sisters are tricky. The next child isn't born by natural childbirth. He's born by cesarean. So technically, he wasn't born of woman. He was removed from her stomach. And so that's how that prediction is foretold. There's also a great line in there where the wicked sister said, your downfall will happen when you go to war with the different factions who he has to go to war with, when the forest comes to you, to the castle. And he says, well, I'm safe. How can the forest come to the castle? Impossible, right? Well, not impossible. They, unbeknownst to him, the warring tribe that's coming to dethrone him because he's taken the throne by force, have cut down trees and they've used them as camouflage, and they move them up towards the castle. So the forest is coming towards him. See, he thinks he's safe all the time, but he's not, because the sisters have predicted his downfall from the very beginning. He just wasn't understanding it, what it meant. He didn't know what, by the prick of my thumb, something wicked this way comes. He didn't know what it meant. If he didn't know what it meant, maybe he would have saved himself all the grief and the murder and blood and everything else. But Shakespeare, we're still doing his plays 500 years later. Right now, we're in a pandemic, so Ashland's Shakespeare Festival, I don't know if you guys ever got up there. Guys and girls got up there. They do a great job. It's one of the most famous repertory theaters in the country. They usually have a 9-month season, I think. They've canceled the whole thing. They don't even know when they're going to open next. Not this year, maybe not even 2021. So Ashland is shut down. The Great Canadian Theatre, Stratford, is right now, because of the pandemic, we can't have live audiences. In England, the Globe Theatre, which is a theater that Shakespeare actually put his plays on. Now, it's not the original theater, that burned down, but they rebuilt it to the exact specifications of the where Shakespeare put his plays on in the 1550s, 1560. In his time, it's an open air theater, by the way, and so there's no roof. And so if it's raining, customers got to bring their own umbrellas. And that's how it rolled. And there's not a lot of seats. You have to stand up. And standing up for 3 or 4 hours in the rain, that takes a real theater goer. And during his time, Shakespeare was well-known, wealthy. His plays did very well to the regular people, even though the language is heightened poetry spoken in this thing called iambic pentameter. It's a way to speak poetry. It was for the common man, because very few people, and Hitler, I want to say Hitler. Why am I saying Hitler all the time? And Shakespeare's day didn't know how to read. And so the common man, but they understood these plays, even though the language is difficult. But it wasn't so difficult then. A lot of the interpretations of Shakespeare have to be, the language is old. And so when you see some language, you don't get it, you have to figure out what's being said. You got to put it in context from 550 years ago. And they have different words for different things than we do now. And so when you get your copy of Shakespeare play, usually it'll say, this is what they said in Shakespeare's time, this is what they're talking about, if you put it in modern contemporary language. So when you do one of these plays as a director or an actor or a set designer, costumer, you have to understand the language and what's being said, or you really can't say the lines. A lot of people go to Shakespeare, you experience it, you might enjoy it, but you might not get it. You're there for some other reasons. Sometimes it looks like the actors Yes, they've memorized this complicated dialogue, but do they really know what they're saying? The good ones do. And the more research and the more rehearsal you do, you make the language not sound poetic or foreign or hard to understand. You say it with the intentions of the words, and so the meaning is hopefully known. So even though you're saying language and using words that we don't use in contemporary language, we get it if the acting is done in such a way that is showing the intentions of the words. That comes down to the actors, folks, and the director who's directing it. I think a lot of people have been turned off by Shakespeare because they go to a production, amateur production, let's say, and it seems like the actors are just yammering off weird language and they don't know what they're saying, although they've memorized it, which is not easy, by the way. And so you don't really care what they're saying. You're looking at the pretty costumes and some sword play, and then you go, oh, the Shakespeare, it's, whatever it is. But if you really see a production of something truthfully meaningful where the actors are conveying the content of those words, those beautiful words, you will be transformed. That's right, folks, transformed. It won't be the same again. I wish I could teach one Shakespeare play for a semester and we'd go into it so deep it would make your head spin. But I don't want your heads to spin. I want you just to pay attention to what we're doing and try to get as much as what I'm saying and much as these videos I'm asking you to watch. I'm just trying to let you soak some of it in. You don't have to understand it all. But if you watch it, try to get it, take notes, and try to write one of these papers I've asked you to write, you might have a better understanding of it all. That's all this class is about. I'm trying to get these difficult topics throughout our history, so that you can have an understanding of them. Hopefully, you get something out of it besides just going over your head and going, I don't get it. Don't get any of it. Well, you need to try a little better. Because it takes two. It takes me and it takes you and the text and the videos and the stuff we're watching. We all got to be a part of it. And the more you put into it, the more you'll get out of it. So why does Macbeth still matter? Well, just look what's going on today in politics. You don't have to look too deep to see that so much of it can be put into modern context. Right now, we have people who were doing power grabs. They're not murdering anybody yet. We've got people trying to control other things, and lots of deals are going on. Shakespeare knew what he was writing about. Nothing's really changed except for the technology and the cell phones. Anyway, so please go in to that films on streaming, Chess College Library, Shakespeare Uncovered, and look at the Ethan Hawke documentary. It's 50 minutes long on Macbeth. I'm not going to sign a paper. I will next week because I'm trying to catch up on the grading. So no assignments this week besides these assignments. And next week I'm going to do a little something different. I'll talk about it on Tuesday when I lecture you guys next. But I'll just give you a heads up. Because of what's going on in contemporary culture right now with all the politics and Black Lives Matter, I want to cover some of this stuff in a modern context. And so we're going to kind of flash forward in history to right now or the last 30 years and deal with some of the stuff that we're dealing with now. So it has some kind of relevance to you guys. Okay. What else did I wanted to say? That was about it. I know I'm going to post this. It's in public. It got listed under private last time. I don't know why. Go look at those documentaries. Try to enjoy what's left of your weekend. It's cooled down a lot. Still smoky as all get out. You guys know that. I'm sure you're aware of it. So stay safe out there. Keep reading your textbook. Keep researching this stuff, and try to enjoy it. It's supposed to be enjoyable, kids. So please do that. Please stay safe. And you remember this: knowledge is power. And it's time to get some knowledge. And understanding Shakespeare is power. Because nothing's changed, folks. Humanity hasn't changed. Just the technology and the fashions and the music. That's changed. But we're all still sort of the same. Anyway, on that happy note, I'm going to post this. I'll post it on it. Well, you'll see. It'll be on modules. I'll put it up there tonight. Watch it when you can and enjoy what's left of your Sunday. I'll see you in a couple days. Bye.